Hi, I'm Tina Shakur. We're here at Cisco Live with one of my favorite people, Kevin Avery, a business development manager. Kevin, you spend a lot of time with customers and our sales reps in the field, and there's a particular use case scenario that you're particularly passionate about. What's going on here? What's the customer? It's a retail environment. Something's going on for them.
It is. It's a mixed B2B and B2C retail environment, and what's interesting about it is that a lot of retailers are very cost constrained, and so they often feel that they can't really afford advanced technology.
Right.
And we help them in this case figure out that not only could they afford it, but they needed to. The customer's scenario was that they were running a branch network across the US and roughly 350 branches.
Yeah.
And they were running them like silos with small telephone systems in each. Calls would come to each individual.
Now, that's not unusual for a retail environment, right?
Absolutely.
That's the way most of them operate today.
Pretty common.
Yeah.
And so one of the things they were trying to do was, well, to give you a little backdrop, they were a company that's a market leader with about 5% market share.
Yeah.
So their major competitors were mom and pops. And the mom and pops have a natural advantage of business agility.
Right.
Because essentially here you're a small business and yet you've got corporate overhead.
Right.
And so they had actually tried centralizing some of these functions into some of their order entry functions into call centers, but they actually found that the cure was worse than the disease. Because what happened was that it turned out that the major competitive differentiator was the local market knowledge and the relationships of me to you locally.
Okay.
And so they had some advantages in terms of economies of scale and pricing advantages and that kind of thing, but they had disadvantages in terms of their sort of clumsy customer service.
Got it.
And so the path that they were headed down was their technology was getting old, and they said, we're going to have to do a refresh. And they were set to spend $35 million upgrading all of these individual systems. And so we thought that there was a better way and approached them on that basis.
All right, so now when Cisco did engage the customer, what was different about how we approached them or what we positioned for them?
That's a great question because it was different. Instead of going in and saying, hey, why don't you consider our widgets instead, we said, why don't you let us take a little bit of time, and in fact we accelerated this process and did the whole discovery process in 2 weeks. And we said we'd like to understand specifically what you're trying to achieve.
Good.
Because there might be a better way to solve this than just doing again what you've done in the past.
So we took a very customer-centric, business-focused approach, looked at their actual business and what the concerns and what they were trying to do before we even entered into the technology discussion.
That's exactly right.
All right.
And we found that they had a great opportunity for collaboration because they could build out their branches, and I'll show you on the monitor. They could take their individual branches and they could create relationships. So within a given marketplace, you have communities. And the communities have commonalities. Suburban businesses that they're serving, they all do some very similar things, whereas urban, say in downtown Chicago, is more about taking care of high rises and things like that.
Right.
This company is sort of a Home Depot for the contractor set.
Got it.
And so what you could do is when you could have calls still come into an individual location, but now everybody can collaborate and you can create policy and routing algorithms that say, I'm going to handle a call closest to the center of the universe whenever I can. But when I can't hit the right threshold that my policy states, I've looked across the entire landscape here, and I can feed the calls without ring, 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 automatically make a decision up front, and I can feed the call to that place that's closest to the center of the universe that can best serve that customer.
So for example, with 13, let's say 13's really busy, they're not able to answer the phone, it would automatically go to one of their sister stores.
It would.
Instead of just going to a random call center or number where nobody knows anything specific about that.
Or ring no answer.
Right,
and this is the cash register of the business. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it can go to a sister branch whenever possible. If not, it can go to a cousin, because that's next in line. And if not, they can leverage corporate resources. They can also do this for subject matter experts and corporate functions that they've extracted purposely from the individual branches.
Fantastic.
So it had a tremendous impact on their ability to service their customers and differentiate from their competitors.
We were talking earlier, and there was a particularly major impact to this customer right away.
There certainly was. Well, it was about a $4 billion business, and the net effect of this was north of 5%. I think it was was actually more like 7. So, but if we use 5, it was a $200 million a year financial impact in terms of sales increase.
So they increased their sales at least 5% by just doing this.
Yeah, and it was also interesting because instead of spending $35 million with the then market leader, they spent about $20 million with us. And so they saved money right up front.
Fantastic.
And then the other thing is that because they ran a dual data center, classic Cisco interaction network, collaboration interaction network, they actually cut their operating costs by about $20 million a year as well.
That is just amazing, right? I mean, that is the perfect example of how taking that business approach and really understanding what our customers are about and what they're doing, that we can provide real value and solve some problems for them, right?
Absolutely.
All right. I know you've got a lot going on today, so I'm going to thank you for your time and let you go in a second, all right?
Okay, thank you, Tina.
For those of us who are still doing the collaboration code, here is your code number. Don't know what I'm talking about? Visit the Cisco collaboration page on facebook.com.